Today's video will be about taking blocks that were drafted or from the Electric Quilt library and then using the Silhouette Cameo to actually cut out the applique pieces. The Silhouette Cameo is an electronic cutting machine for personal use. It works a lot like a home printer, however instead of printing it uses a small blade to cut paper, cardstock, vinyl, and of course fabric. I have now opened Electric Quilt and I actually have added a block from the library. I just picked an applique block that was layered and had some a little bit more complex shapes because I wanted to show you how to do both duplication and tracing within Silhouette and really finding a way to transfer the EQ information over to my Silhouette Cameo device. So I will go into the applique tab and I'm going to start by basically I want to keep one of each of the elements and I want to delete the repeats. And I'll make multiple copies, but I want to do that over in Silhouette. And then I want to get rid of all of the layering. And I want to place the elements far enough apart that I can trace each of them independently. And then I'll go to the color tab and I want high contrast between the applique shapes and the background, so I will color the background white and I will color the other elements black. And you don't have to use black, but it does provide a great deal of contrast. I will then shut this down. And I'm going to actually now use my snipping tool. And this is a tool that's provided with Windows, and I think there are similar tools within the Mac environment as well, but it basically allows you to take pictures. So I'm going to do a new snip, and I am going to pick this entire block, including the outside boundaries, and I am then going to save that as one oak leaf, and then I am going to shut that down. And I found that it was good to have one block for overall sizing, but for some of the elements that are more complex, I want to get as big of JPEG file as possible. So I'm going to actually zoom in, and this is my acorn, and I'm going to take another snip of that, and again I get the crosshairs and I just want to pick up the acorn, and I'm going to save that as 2 oak leaf, and then I will go to the full screen again, and I'm going to just do a zoom in on the oak leaf there, and again pick up my snipping tool, and when I get the crosshairs, just drag the box over the oak leaf, and I'm going to save that as 3 oak leaf. Okay, I'm going to close down my snipping tool and I will go ahead and minimize EQ and now open the Silhouette program. Okay, I've now opened my Silhouette program and I'm going to start by doing a file open, and this will actually open up to any Silhouette Studio files, but I will select all files and I will find my number 1 oak leaf and click on OK, and that will bring a JPEG file basically into my Silhouette program. So if I click on that object, it will tell you that the size is 6.5 by 6.5. I actually want to click on Scale to resize it. And I think 6, and a half is a little small for the block. I'm going to change the block size to 8 inches. And this will actually resize all of the elements to fit very nicely into an 8-inch block. Okay, now I need to actually trace each of the elements. And you can actually trace all of them at once. I actually found it was easier doing one at a time. I think I got paid maybe just a little bit closer attention and got a nicer trace when I did that. So if I select Object and I select Trace, it opens the Trace window on the right. And I'm going to select the trace area, and I'll start by the acorn here. And I'm actually going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. I suggest turning off the high pass filter, and then the entire piece becomes yellow. But you can see there's a lot of grayness around the edges, and that really is a result of the pixels in the JPEG image. I am going to try to play a little bit with scale and with threshold to eliminate as much as I can there. And that looks pretty good, so then I will select Trace. And when I move my image aside, you can see the image. It's not bad, but you can see you've got just some of those pixels there, and that's going to create just a little bit of a jagged edge when you cut your image. So that was why I did a couple of a couple of close-ups, and I'm just going to show you the difference here. So let's go ahead and again select all files and actually select the acorn to copy. And this one I will increase the size, and again, once I've got the image looking good, I can always bring the size back down. But now I'm going to select Trace again and select Trace Area. And again, on high pass, it just outlines the outside. I want to turn that off, and you can see that it then all turns yellow, and you can already tell that it's going to be a little bit cleaner edge. But I'm going to see if I can get it just a little bit cleaner here by playing with scale and threshold, and I think that looks pretty good. So I will select Trace. Now for this one, I'm just going to bring that over back to my other file. And if I do a Control V, that actually works very much like EQ in that I can get this file. I'm going to zoom to a full screen. I guess I made that really large. And I'm going to get this resized a little bit smaller. If I look at, I'm going to move this out of the way just for a second here. But this one is 2.544 tall. So I want to change, ooh, I did pretty good on that, but I can get it exact to scale 2.554. So I'll resize, and I've locked the aspect ratio so the width and height are the same. And I'm just going to zoom in here so you can just see the difference between the two. Still a little hard to see. Let's try another zoom in. Okay, yes, I think you can sort of see that the file on the left has just a little bit more of a jagged edge than the element on the right. So I'm going to use the one on the right and delete the one on the left. And really, I said the best way just to address that is to get as good of a picture from EQ of the elements as possible. Move that. I think I just got to get that a little bit closer there. Now, for the circles, I can do the trace just like I did before, but I found that it put a lot of nodes around the circle. And so I came up with a little bit better way to get a more accurate circle. So I'm going to zoom in, but what I'm going to do is actually select this Ellipse tool. And while I use the ellipse, and again you can see the crosshairs, I'm going to have shift down. And if I have shift down, it's going to give me a perfectly sized circle. And you can see as I'm drawing this, that's pretty good. If I want to resize it, I will select the arrow key, and I can move the corners. But again, it's going to, as long as I just move the corners, it's going to keep it at least a perfectly sized circle. In fact, I probably got a better circle than what it looks like my drawing that I brought in. Now what I'm going to do is take that background image, of course, there it is, and I'm going to move it out of the way because I now have all of my elements that I need, and now I just need to position them on my mat and copy and duplicate them. I did my page settings, and what I want to do is actually reveal the cutting mat behind the document that I'm working on. And so I will select the oak leaf, and I want to actually replicate, and I'm going to just create a column of 4. And they're not completely fitting on the mat, so I'm going to move 2 of them over here. And I think sometimes some of this is because I'm filming, and that takes a lot of power in my computer, and sometimes some of the other settings operate a little bit slower. Okay, now I will pick up the acorn, and I want to replicate that, and I'll just do a row of 4. Okay, and that looks pretty good. And I'll pick up the large circle and put it on this corner, and I'll pick up the small circle and put it in this corner. Now, the Silhouette mat is actually a sticky mat, and I could actually put my fabric on all 4 corners and different fabrics on there and run it once through the cutting sequence, and everything will cut. So the first one, which would be the green leaves, you can see that it's 7 inches across and 7 inches down. So if I cut a piece of the green fabric 7 by 7 and I back it with fusible webbing that is 7 by 7, I can then place it on this corner of my cutting mat. I wanted to actually show you the cutting mat after I was done running it through the Silhouette Cameo. And I ended up with just a little bit different placement than I had previously decided to do in the video. But you can see each of the fabric pieces with the fusible webbing on the back and how I placed it on the Cameo. Once I have the objects all placed where I want them on the Silhouette screen, I then need to set my cut settings. And you can see once I selected cut settings, the window will open. All of the items that will be cut are highlighted in sort of a darker red. I can actually turn some of those off, but I will go ahead and keep them on. I do need to set my material type, and I will set it to fabric, thick fabric. And from there I can then click on the Send to Silhouette. You can now see the block that I created from my cut pieces. And once I remove them from my Silhouette, I just fuse them onto a 9-inch background square. And I'm now ready to take the piece to my sewing machine, and we'll probably just use a blanket stitch around all of the shapes. You can tell where the technique can actually save you some time in terms of cutting. It can also provide for a more accurate cut. I think I still probably have some more to learn about using my Silhouette Cameo, but I hope you have enjoyed learning along with me as I've explored this new tool. For additional videos or techniques, please visit my website at www.onpointquilter.com. Thanks so much for watching.